I'd like to welcome everyone back to part 2 of the Friday Night Pressbox podcast, highlighting the tenure of former Fannin County Rebels head football coach Coach Drennan. Would like to give our shout-outs our sponsors. Another shout-out, Acker Travel Company by Dream Vacations, and All-Star Sports Photography by Jerry Daves. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. On this edition, part 2, we will go over Coach Drennan's coaching staffs that he had with him during his tenure and his weight training program. Coach, let's dive into it. Talk about what your former coaches meant to you and your weight training program second, but I know this is going to be a little bit lengthy, but I know all your coaches meant a lot to you. But talk about how much they meant to you and the program.
You know, Coach Chambers and Coach Wilson were with me pretty much the whole time. Coach Chambers, he was, a lot of times I wish he was the head coach. Coach Chambers had a chance to be the head coach, but he's having his youngest daughter, Campbell, who just turned 16. I think it was last weekend. She was being born. At the time that, I got hired, and Coach Chambers just did not feel like he could, commit, with having a young family and everything. And that's how I ended up really with the job, because Coach Chambers has been there since 95. So anyway, Coach Chambers ended up being our offensive coordinator starting in 2006. Coach Daly was with us from 2001 to 2005, and then he got the head coaching job at Copper Basin. But Coach Wilson, he was with us,
Coach Daly had a good, not to interrupt, but Coach Daly had a very good run at Copper Basin there.
He sure did. Coach Daly was a heck of a football coach. I mean, we used to hate having to defend the stuff that he was doing on offense. No doubt about it. On this staff right here, Josh Patterson was a former Fannin County player. He came on and coached our linebackers and running backs that year. We brought in Coach Hampton, who stayed with us for a while.
One of my favorites.
Coordinator. And funniest guy. One of the funniest guys. We had Coach Gokenauer was coaching our ninth grade team along with Coach Stanley. They did a great job. And then you had Coach Markram, who's, only with us a couple of years, but, he was the kind of guy that brought a little levity to the program. Is where I was so serious, Coach Markram just took everything in stride, and so kids responded to that. When he did a great job with our secondary guys, he, I handed him, Reese and Godfrey and Hensley and a couple other guys. And, I said, Coach, those are my guys. I said, they better be good out there. I'm going to be all over you. So he didn't have an easy transition into that, because, I'm going to be standing right over you on that. But those guys, Coach Wilson, Coach Chambers, were my trusted assistant coaches who had been there to see, the beginning, all the way to really, towards the end. They were with me. And so, you just can't say enough about those guys, the time commitment that they put in, just how they treated the kids. We had just a great staff of coaches, and I was one of those guys. I was with, our players all the time, weight training, football practice, and I needed, those guys to, they had to help, because, my voice, it got a lot of the players, they would get tired of hearing my voice, trust me, and it carried. So, I'm naturally a loud guy. And a lot of people mistake that for being mean, but, my voice carries. So anyway, just love those guys to death, still to this day. I talk to Coach Chambers all the time. I don't get a chance to talk to Coach Wilson much, but we're going to get a golf date set here soon. And we're just going to all get together and have some fun soon. So love those guys to death. Really do.
Coach, talk about
on, Tim.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say later on down the road, Coach Chambers went into administration in 2010, and we ended up with, Coach Mark Stone and Travis Stone ended up coaching with us. That was a great addition to our staff. Those guys were just unbelievable. Again, they were very complimentary, as far as what, my attitude. They were, very good at coaching and very good with the kids, and very complimentary, what I'm saying, coaches for us. So couldn't have been happier with them. We stayed good because of Coach Stone. This is, I want to say this is 2009 right here. Yeah, old Russell Bell played for us and graduated in 2003. He was running technology as Coach Stanley. I can't even remember this guy's name, but he coached with us. David something. Coach Chambers knows. I can't even think of his last name.
You talking about the guy beside Coach Stone?
Coach Stone, yeah.
I remember. I remember him. I can't remember his name too.
I can't think of his last name, but he was a wonderful man. And then there's Coach Hampton. There's Coach Shively. David Shively came on with us that year. And then there's me with my goatee just really started turning gray by 2009.
That's a good photo right there.
Anyway, yeah.
That's a good staff.
Good bunch of fellas right there. Yeah.
Good staff. Coach, talk about your weight training program and your off-season conditioning program. I can I can remember just having team sports in third period with Coach Farmer. And you would have weight training in third period with them with your football players, and I mean I could just hear you guys getting after it all the time. Talk about your weight training program with your players, and then talk about your off season program as well, because I think a lot of people are going to realize that this really was a difference maker in your program.
Well, it was, and there's no doubt about it. When you understand, Tim, when I got to Fannin, we had 3 benches, 1 squat rack, a couple of universal machines laying out there. Then the next year, we had Mr. Arp was our superintendent, and we had Thomas Arp, and of course, Mr. Davenport was big into weightlifting. That was one of his points of pride, and he demanded excellence. From me and from everybody that went in that, Mr. Davenport was the first guy in the weight room every day for as long as I can remember,
Yeah.
He was there at the crack of dawn every morning. And, there were a lot of times I went in there early and he was already there. But what they did for us was they committed to, remember all those weight racks that we ended up with? We had 10 of them. And, we ended up taking out all that stuff and putting in those new weight racks by 2002, and, really started to turn the corner in our weight program. A lot of people say, well, that was football. No, we had kids that were basketball players. We had soccer players. We had cheerleaders. We had just regular students in there, and everybody was treated the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as football, everybody could say, well, you know what? We do the same workout the football team does. And they would be telling you the truth because they did. Now, we focused on 3 main areas, which was the bench press, power clean, and squat. Well,
yeah.
Power cleans and squats, everybody can do those, and that's what that's where your athletic development comes from, doing those 2 lifts. Well, bench is just one of those, you got to be able to push, but, a lot of guys who, especially in high school, they got a lot farther to go to get to their chest than say somebody like, Bill Mull, who doesn't have to go that far to hit his chest, so a guy like him is going to bench a lot more. And then you had, but everybody, kids are always going to be kids, and they're going to judge themselves on their bench press, and basically we just tried to convince our kids that, do not judge your success, on your bench press, because at the bottom line, that's not going to win you any football game, and it's not going to win you any athletic competition. Squatting and power cleans. And Tim, what we used to do, we used to videotape our kids doing the exercises. And then we'd go in there, and kids are very visual learners, so we would take them into the put on the video. They'd see themselves doing the lifts. They'd learn what they needed to improve, and when I first got there, Tim, maybe there might have been 2 guys that could do 225 in a power clean. But now here we are talking about 2006. Well, we've got 3 guys going over 315, several guys, many guys going over 275 on a power clean. That's amazing. I never touched that when I was a player, or even came close, So we had a bunch of guys doing a lot of weights, and what we did is we turned it into a competitive atmosphere, and so you would be sectioned off into a group, with your not football, just according to your strength, and your goal was try to move up. If you could move up, if you started at station 7, you can move up to station 4 by the end of the semester. That was a big deal, And and people would compete. We used to compete against each other, not on strength, but on technique. Okay, that was the competition, is the technique, and because there's always going to be a strongest guy. There's always going to be a weakest guy. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is. There's always going to be a fastest guy. There's always going to be a slowest guy. We didn't care anything about that. All we cared about was effort and technique. That was it. Yeah. And you weren't looked more favorably upon because you were, so to speak, stronger. You were looked favorably upon, because of your technique. I watched Matt Gaddy put up 335 on a power clean. It's the sickest thing I've ever seen, up to that point. I've never seen anybody do that, ever, and then you got guys like Austin Leach and, Zach Leach doing 315, Justin Hall doing 315, several other boys. Like I said, we had a lot of guys going over 275. It was amazing. And then you had your like I said, regular kids or kids that didn't play football. And I think, we had kids that, that were in that class because they might have been behavior problems in class, in another class. So be it. They came to our class. Hey, I told them, as long as you're willing to work, and their confidence got built up by that. Yeah. Because, it was just amazing, and that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to make confident, well-adjusted kids, not big-headed, confident. There's a huge difference, okay? We were not very confident starting out, when I got to Fannin, but, by the time 2006 rolled around, we were confident, not cocky. We were confident, and we knew that we could compete. And, it's just amazing. When I think about our weight room, I mean, Tim, they had to stop putting 45, 50 kids in our class because, there were state laws against that,
Yeah.
And, but at first we would have, seriously, we would have 45, 50 kids in there in the weight room.
Yeah. I remember it was impossible when I was in school to get third block weight training. Yeah. It was impossible. Yeah, you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it.
Well, first thing we wanted to get, it was we wanted to get all the athletes, Fannin County athletes in there. That meant Coach Farmer wanted all his girls in there. Coach Lunsford wanted all his baseball players in there. Everybody had married up to what we were doing. And we weren't killing the guys, okay? That's what I remember about weight training when I was in school. It was torture. Well, we didn't make it torture. We made it fun. I felt like. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, some people may disagree and they say, oh, coach, it was torture, but, but I don't think it was. I don't think we ever tried to, we didn't just try to physically exhaust somebody in there. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
We were trying to make you stronger. We were trying to make you better.
And I know, of course, I never took weight training, but being good friends with Price Acker and Bryant Meeks, I just remember them talking about how much fun weight training was. They never dreaded going to weight training. They enjoyed it.
Well, and I'm glad, because when I was in school, I dreaded it, because it was, basically 50 minutes of, let's see how tired we can get you. You know what I'm saying? We didn't get better because of it. We didn't develop any camaraderie because of it. It was just, for 50 minutes, let's just see how tired we can make you.
Yeah.
And you didn't get anything from it. And I wanted to make sure, but I'll tell you a funny story. Back in 2003, 2004, I went on a very big exercise kick, and I was, running every morning. And then all of a sudden one day in the second semester of, I guess it was 2004, we had a class in there, second block, but we only had like 20 kids, which was rare. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a lot of older guys. Jack Caldwell was in there, Josh Curtis at that time. They were all about to be seniors. We had Jacob Callahan in there, Kyle Godfrey, they were seniors, Derek Burns. I'll never forget old Derek Burns, never played a down of football for us, but I loved that kid more than, just fun guy to be around. So we had a very mature class. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to get in one of these groups and I'm going to work out with these guys. Because like I said, it was only 20 and I could control the environment,
Yeah.
So I never forget, I probably started out on the fourth bench, and me and old Josh Curtis were on the same group, and there was another kid in there with us. Man, we used to compete and go at each other all the time. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I'm in group 3, and I think I got up to about 285 on the bench before we left the year. And, boy, if Josh Curtis didn't beat me, you talk about mad. I'm telling you what. And, of course, funny. I'm going to pour it on now if I beat you, and I'm going to pour it on. I'll never forget. We had you remember Ashley Young, Patterson?
Yeah,
Ashley
I know
Patterson,
Ashley real well.
Ashley Young. She was a little she was a freshman, and she was the only girl in that class. And she could squat more than, several of the guys that we had in the class.
Yeah.
I mean, she could put up like 200 pounds as a ninth grader in there.
Was Ashley a good soccer player?
And I just had, yeah, absolutely. And I just, we had Alden Acker, Ashley Watkins. I mean, I can't name them all, but I just remember those girls. They were such hard workers. Yeah. And, of course, they had their little dressing room there, and they, Coach, we got to watch Young and the Restless. So I was like, no, y'all got to get in. Oh, it was just so much fun. I mean, we, and like I said, I used to kid around with the soccer guys all the time, because they were destroying our football field, but they were some of the best kids, Oh, we just had such a good time. Like I said, I can't remember all of them name-wise. I could. I mean, if you I just remember the Gator boys, and I remember Will Godfrey going out there to play soccer, which made him better.
Yeah.
It's a lot of kids. We used to have so much fun. We used to kid around with them. I used to. The biggest thing that we did too, Tim, is we wouldn't allow any bullying. Okay, that was a big no-no. Bullying kids. So if there was a kid in there that was weak, man, you were not allowed at all to make fun of that kid at all. As long as they put forth. Now, I used to tell them, I said, guys, all you got to do is try. I said, no one will ever bother you in this class. I promise you. As long as you put forth the effort. Now, don't put forth the effort. You're on your own. I said, I'm not going to run interference for you. I came in there. They put forth the effort, they earned their respect, and that's what it was all about. It wasn't about how strong you were. It was just, hey, just like anything else, like I said, it wasn't about winning in football. It was about how you played the game.
Yeah.
Did you play like winners? Okay. Winning is a byproduct of doing everything right. And just as weightlifting, so like I said, I mean, we had so much fun in that weight room. Now, I'm going to tell you, doing that thing 3 periods a day for the first 3 hours, from 8 to 12:30 to 12:45, my ears, I'm
Oh
telling
yeah.
you what, it was bang, bang, bang there, like you said. And I tell you, I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
So had a really good program, Tim. Like I said, kids bought in. It was great.
Yeah. Talk about your off-season program too, and what the team done before the official practice date started in the summer.
Well, now what we did is basically the same thing we did during this off season or in the class in the weight room, but however, it got kicked up a notch because we had the track in the field, and that's where it got rough. That's where the rubber met the road, is where, so to speak. So, we were very smart about it. We started out slow, and then we built, to a crescendo, shall we say. And I remember, instead of having, like in 2004 and 2005, where you'd have maybe 30, kids show up, 25, 30, by this point in time, 2006, we'd have, 50 to 60 to 70 kids showing up. We had to break it off because we didn't have enough room in the weight room. So, we had to have kids out on the field, kids out in the weight room. And, we used to divide it up between, upperclassmen, lowerclassmen, or maybe offense and defense. Just made it fun, just change it up. But like I said, if you didn't come the first day, that meant you missed a day of, of getting better and getting yourself in better shape. And we only went 3 days a week, and we did it at 6 o'clock in the evening. And most of the folks, coaches, they like to do all their stuff in the morning. But, we had a lot of kids that had jobs. And also I felt like if we did it in the evening, that those boys would hang out with each other after the workout session. And, like go to somebody's house. Exactly. Go to somebody's house and hang out, and I know a lot of them did that. And, and of course, you couldn't invite the whole team, but they would break off in groups. And we had a lot of kids that made sure that, that they, some guys had to, pick up kids that didn't have rides. I'm looking there at that field, Tim, I used to cut that grass right there. That right there looks pretty good. I remember that was some of my favorite times too, was cutting that grass.
Did you have a zero turn or just a
where I could take my mind off everything? So I had a tractor, and had a tractor with a, the sod cutter on the back of it. And, you can see we had you can see the checkerboard, boy, I tell you what, I made sure that field looked sharp. I mean, and, that goes into your parents, that came out there on Friday and painted that field. I mean, Jerry Daves, Mr. Gaddy. I mean, just so many people would show up and do that field.
You mentioned Jerry Daves. I do want to do a quick shout out to Jerry. He's sponsoring this podcast, and he's the one to provide all these pictures, and that I'm actually going to share with Coach Drennan after this. I've got about 100 of them to share with him, and we do thank you, Jerry, for all you did do and done for the Fanning County Club.
Let me what he did to promote our football program, and he didn't do it because he was getting paid to do it. He did it out of the goodness of his heart, and he wanted to see. That was the biggest thing. We had a lot of people that wanted to see this thing take off, and during those days, we just, we had a lot of folks that wanted to see this thing take off. And, we just, like I said, we just had some really good folks involved. And, you can't discuss it enough, but, Jerry was one of those guys that was always on the sideline. He always had pictures so kids could, like I said, take those things with them. He did these nice, engraved, in glass posters for all the seniors when they graduated. and it was just cool. And it was just them or a couple of their teammates with them,
Yeah.
And then, of course, he always had the team picture in there and something, to be said. It was just huge. Things that we had never had before because either we didn't have the, the resources.
The last thing on your mind is taking pictures.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we had video, that I had to watch. So,
yeah,
end zone, side views and everything else. And this is back in like I said, most of my, films are videotapes and DVDs now, in which they don't even have players for those things anymore. I don't even know if you can buy them anymore.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I haven't watched a whole lot of old games, Tim. Haven't really had time, but I remember, and of course, how I am. I'm not going to show my emotions too much, but trust me, I've watched a few games since I've left Fannin, and it does. It brings, tears. I'll say it. It just brings tears to my eyes. Just so proud of those guys.
Good men for sure, Coach.
Accomplished. Yes, sir. Yes,
Good
sir.
man. This concludes part 2. Please join us Friday for part 3 as we go over the 2006 and 2007 seasons, 2 very special years in Fannin County football history. In 2006, Fannin won the sub-region. In 2007, Fannin County won the region championship under head coach Coach Drennan. Please like, subscribe, rate, and tell everybody about this podcast. I would like, again, thank our sponsors, Acker Travel Company by Price Acker and Beth Acker, and All Star Sports Photography by Jerry Daves. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast.